Welcome, everybody. My name's Sophia the Orange, and I am currently serving as the Kingdom of Atlantea's Kingdom Minister of Arts and Sciences. And that's something I love to do. I got my laurel about a year and a half ago for the sake of my obsession with the period art of Commedia dell'arte, which is comedy theater from the 16th century in the Italian city states. So that's where my focus is. But one of the things that has been really important in my whole experience of SCA life in the last 10, 15 years is online um, everything, classes, shows, live streams, recordings, all sorts of stuff. And apparently, it became very handy to share some organized information and guidance about how you too can throw an online party or shindig or class or collegium or anything you want. There's so many wonderful resources out there, and it's just and they're free. A lot of them are free. The important part is just being organized in it. So I'm going to pass on to you what I know. I am not a professional live streamer or YouTuber. I don't get any money out of it. I just obsess over my own hobbies, which benefit often from this kind of knowledge. So we're going to go through these slides. You guys had the links to the slides. My TA and good friend Alessandra is going to be sharing that link over and over again. So feel free to jump in. You can read ahead. I won't tell anybody. It's fine. So let's take a look at that first slide. Please do also check out my blog, sophia.scottandlara.com, because of course I married a geek that got us our own domain name. And if you want to check out wedding.scottandlara.com too, there's a lot of cute pictures. But the whole point is I got this blog and I put all sorts of stuff on the blog. And I have a kind of a starter kit blog post in there for online symposiums. Now I've updated these slides since then. So look back at the blog later for updates on these slides and more. So in my day job, take a look at my LinkedIn. I am a certified knowledge manager and I do online training for the US Department of Defense. And that might sound a little weird, but it is entirely in the unclassified realm. And I teach people how to use online tools. And it's all, easy, free stuff, nothing super secret or paid or anything. These are all easy tools. So you too can do this. Anybody can. And if you have more trouble after seeing the slides today, just let me know. I train people just all the time, every day, and I love doing it. So let's move on to the recipe. Here is a recipe for online events, any kind of shindig. And up at the top, you see I have some examples. Classes is the big one right here. Now, this experience you are having, you too could build a university like this with free tools that are easy to get a hold of. Now, Atlantia University, I have to say, does have some custom code building the database and the online services that we have. So that's another story for another day. But it can be done with online free tools that you don't have to build yourself. There's also all sorts of performances. You've seen YouTube, you know that they're out there. Workshops where you actually engage with each other and you teach through doing, and you can say, look, this is how I'm making the embroidery stitch. That can all be done. And then, of course, you've all been on online meetings, or at least anybody that's been in the world as we know it since 2020 has probably been in an online meeting. And if you're confused about any of that stuff, go ahead and let me know in the chat and I will take a moment to explain it. However, I'm going to assume you all know that you can do these things, you're in favor of it, and you want to do it. So here are some pieces you need to pull together in order to make it happen. First, you've got to have content providers, somebody to put forth into the internet cool things that other people want to see. So at University of Atlantia, our content providers are teachers, all of these awesome people that have brain power that they put into something and then send out into the internet so that you can absorb it. Also teachers, bards, performers, any kind of meeting leader, little group leaders, or just two people. It doesn't matter as long as you are providing some sort of content that other people want to see. What are those other people? They're your audience. and they can be absolutely anybody in the whole world. The great thing about Atlantia University is we are definitely reaching out beyond the SCA. I love that so much. Hagar was just telling us about a person he knows that said they're not part of the SCA right now, but of course they know about Atlantia University. It's a great program, and it is because we're serving all sorts of nerds and geeks from all walks of life. Now, other things you're going to need include some sort of online conferencing software. And don't be scared of that. I'm talking about something as easy as Zoom. Zoom is so popular, has been since 2020. Even though it's been around since before that, I was using it in 2014 for group meetings for the Known World Dance and Music Symposium back then. So it's been around for a long time. Lots of stuff you can do with Zoom, very similar to Google Meet. And I'm going to talk about those pieces of software later. You're also going to need some staff people because doing it all by yourself is a lot of work and no fun, and you probably won't sleep. So get some staff people. You're going to need some folks to help you be on a team. And then you're going to need processes. Processes are important. And a lot of that stuff I have learned the hard way. So I really want you guys to learn from my pain and suffering and don't do it the hard way. You also are going to need some things that I don't want to leave to assumption. You're going to need internet access, reliable internet access, and electricity, and tables and chairs and computers, and some air conditioning. So there's some things that normally people say, they just don't have in their recipe box. Please include these things in your recipe box. Internet access and electricity and comfortable chairs. Let's just say you're going to need some comfortable chairs. Alrighty, let's move on to the next thing, that is official versus unofficial. You can absolutely do your own shindig without having anybody else tell you what to do or give you restrictions or limitations. You can do your own thing, and you are absolutely encouraged and welcome to do it. And you don't need the SCA or any other organization to bless you. However, if you do an official SCA event, there are a few things you've got to, hoops you got to jump through. I'm going to give you Atlantia examples and tell you where to look in your own kingdom if you're using, if you're from another SCA kingdom or another organization. I'll tell you what things to consider. So if you're unofficial, we're going to go to this right side of the slide here. Unofficial means you don't have any organization sponsoring you. You're just like Mr. Good Guy out there saying, I've got some stuff to share. I want to share it. And you absolutely can. It means if you're a Scadian, you should be very careful to not use the term SCA or any graphics like heraldry that is copyrighted by SCA entities. So just be careful to say, we're not an SCA group. Maybe you're a group of people who met in the SCA and you're doing your own thing. Own it. That's all you got to be worried about. Now, through that, you're not going to have access to the SCA's insurance. No awards within the SCA are granted at your event. And also, you don't have anybody else's external deadlines. So that's cool. And so it's all a matter of give and take. So what do you get by going with the official route and asking for sponsorship by your local SCA group or any level of SCA entities? And the same thing would go for another organization. So let's say you worked with a nonprofit community theater group. You're going to be wanting to ask the same questions. Sponsorship with the SCA means you're going to follow some rules, and each entity has their own rules. The kingdom has their own rules. Every barony, shire, canton has their own rules. Some of them might be minimal, like you show up to a meeting, you ask permission, and we vote on it and say yes. It could be 5 minutes of work, or it could be weeks of convincing the group that you are worthy of their sponsorship. It could be anything that they want to tell you. Now, in the Kingdom of Atlantia, generally speaking, if you have a group of people that is barony, shire, canton, that has a bank account. That is an official entity. If they don't have a bank account that has SCA Inc. dash group of blah, 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 then they're going to be unofficial, like a household. Those are great. Like a guild. Those are great. But they're not official SCA entities, especially if they don't have a bank account. So if you're wondering, if you're not sure if you're going down the official or unofficial route, then talk to the people. And if they have official, an official SCA entity that has a process you want to get sponsored by them, they're going to have their own rules. And if they don't, you should probably talk about it and know what their boundaries and rules are. Now, with the SCA, it comes with insurance, and that doesn't really apply a lot to online events. And this is one of the things I have not really looked into deep enough to really satisfy my own curiosity. What would happen if something bad happened during an online SCA event like this? Like, would the SCA insurance apply here? My guess is no, because really that's just a catastrophic event protection for the SCA Inc. And so I think it doesn't have a role, even though I have not heard that from an SCA Inc. representative. So I'm just going to say you're probably not going to experience anything with the SCA insurance with an online event like you would normally with an in-person event, because that's when the insurance comes into play. The copyright's a big deal because the SCA entities own heraldry and all sorts of logos and images. So you can't just take the SCA, little shield logo that's yellow with the laurel wreath in it. You can't just take that and put it up on your event website without official sponsorship of an SCA organization. So you got to be careful about that, whether or not you have permission. And SCA has awards. Lots of people like to include awards in their online events. And if you've got a baronage or a king and queen who want to give awards, then your online event has to be official. University of Atlantia is that. Our online sessions, the February session, and then the Sundays in June and September, those are all official events. So if there are Atlantia, king and queen, or if a baronage wanted to come in and say, Harold, open my court, I have an award to give, and they give the award of the doodad, and somebody is happy, we get applause, and we say, thank you for your volunteer work. It's only official if it's an official SCA event. If it's your household holding an online day of classes and you have not gone the official route, then that's not an award. It's a very nice applause and it's a very nice gesture, but it's not going to be an official award. So that is the official versus unofficial route. I'm going to pause for just a second to take a breath and a little water, see if you have any questions. Anybody got questions about that official versus unofficial thing?
Not so much a question, but a comment. Is one of the other things that being official gives you is it gives you publicity through things like the Kingdom website.
Exactly. Thank you. Yes, outreach. For outreach, you can clearly use SCA channels.
Also, the official Facebook page versus the unofficial Facebook page.
Exactly. Now, that's something that I would say if you were an unofficial group, like let's say you were a household and you're holding a day of classes online, you could always ask. You could always ask and say, hey, Sophie, do you mind if I make an announcement on your official, email list for artsy people? I would probably say yes, but that's a personal choice of whoever's in charge. Mm-hmm. So you can always ask. In fact, I'm big into asking. Like if you're not sure and there's no rule against it, ask, because the answer could be yes, and you wouldn't know it if you didn't ask. All right, here we go. Caveats. I think I might have covered these already. Requirements are per group. And I forgot to mention something with official SCA events is we do have a bully policy that we publish for very good reasons. And like Alessandra was helping with earlier, she had an official statement to make about recordings. That is extremely important, because if you come to a class and you didn't know it was being recorded and you're like, ew, I'm no, not, don't put my name up there. You got to know. And so that's why we have this process that we've done already. So there are some amazing online events that have happened, especially since 2020. We did an Atlantia Crown tournament, the first one after pandemic lockdown in 2021. That was an amazing thing. It was live streamed and it was a lot of juggling. Remember that thing where I said make sure you have electricity and internet access? Well, doing that when you're out in a field, it takes a little extra doing than just in your living room. So be careful about those things. Here's another great example of unofficial. The Known World Courtesans Collegium was one of the best week-long collegiums I saw in 2020. It was amazing. They did a great job, and they were an unofficial entity. Nowadays, they are a guild, and guilds are still technically unofficial. They're not SCA entities, but they're like households. So again, you'd need to just ask, say, hey, I've got this brilliant courtesans collegium going on for, for a day of classes or whatever you want to hold. Ask, and chances are you can get support. Here we go. This is our example of Atlantia. Here are the official requirements for an online event. So for virtual events, per Atlantia law, the event must be official to give out awards. That's like one of the bigger things that people consider. A court report needs to be filed in conjunction with that official event if there is a court. The requirements include having an SCA group sponsoring. And what that usually looks like is making a proposal to the group. And at an official group meeting, a discussion happens and a vote happens. And then the seneschal will say what the group officially decided. And then the seneschal and the event steward are two people who have to work together with the kingdom calendar deputy in order to do the process that gets their event flyer onto the calendar. And it's in Atlantia, we call that that online database, we call it Spike. And Spike also becomes a verb. Did you spike the event? Means, did you get through the process completely of taking our event information, putting it into a flyer, submitting it to the Spike database, and the database administrator behind that, working with the calendar deputy, making sure that all the information has been shared to the right place at the right time. And then that feeds our public Atlantia calendar online. There is also separately the Acorn, which is the Atlantia newsletter, and any official event has to be published in that newsletter. If you go through the Spike process and you get onto the calendar, you are then also in an automatic process getting into the Acorn. You don't have to worry about that. However, if you're doing it on a baronial level, you got to do all that manually. So it doesn't have to be necessarily a kingdom event. You can make a baronial day of classes online happen, and you would need to publish it in your baronial newsletter for it to be official. And there's a nice webpage there, chronicler.atlantia.sca.org, in order to give you all the information if you want to go down that rabbit hole. I do highly recommend that you read up on it. Alrighty, so that's official requirements in the Kingdom of Atlantia. Your other kingdoms will have something similar. I'm pretty sure the SCA Inc. level requires some sort of publishing in a publicly accessible view that is either online or a newsletter. And that's a thing that says our nonprofit organization is going to take all the information about what we're doing officially and make it available to the public. However, the public could be also restricted by membership. You might have to have a membership in order to log in to the system to get your newsletter. So all those things are going to be per kingdom, but please do expect some kind of requirement for publishing the information about what you're doing with SCA resources. Let's move on. All right, internet safety. This is really important and not always obvious. I'm sure we have all heard of Zoom bombers. And if you haven't, if you have not heard about what a Zoom bomber is, a Zoom bomber is someone who gets a hold of a publicly published link to a Zoom meeting and comes in and does something attention getting that's usually not shareable in polite company. And I've been there and seen it happen, and it comes in all flavors. Sometimes it's really obviously stupid 12-year-old boy antics. And sometimes it's just like, why are you showing me this image? It's stupid. So it is distracting. Often it's not going to be severely damaging, but it's distracting. And there are a few things that you can do to avoid it in the first place, and then also some things you can do to react to it. My best um, my best suggestion is treat your link as your link to your Zoom as a private thing that is a lock, and use a password of some kind. And that password needs to be kept separately, like a key from the lock. But you should be able to bring them together easily for your audience. So, for instance, you could take that Zoom link and let everybody know that it's going to be published in a certain place at a certain time, very close to the event. You can also publish that a password will be available, give that password separately, or you could use something that is a commonly understood word from your community. For example, in Atlantia, if I were going to use this strategy, I would say our password is going to be the Atlantia Populous Badge. It is a sea creature with a nickname. Use the nickname. So if you're part of the Atlantia community, you're going to know what that is or be able to ask somebody. If you are so new and so unconnected that you do not know what that would be, there will be places to ask. So you could always ask at the webpage should have some sort of contact information for somebody from the staff to ask. And that's going to be a small percentage of people. So it does come with its risks. I think those risks are surmountable. So there are ways to publish your password, or what Atlantia University does is it requires everyone to sign up ahead of time. And then that allows names with email addresses to be tracked in a database. And those email addresses are the ones that then get the link to the main Atlantia lobby, Atlantia University lobby. So you may have seen other universities publish their link ahead of time, and it could be very public, or it might be restricted to something like a newsletter where you have to get the password to that newsletter first. There's all sorts of ways to keep the link private or the password private. And it's going to be what you think works best for your community. I really love how Atlantia University does it. However, it comes with a cost. It means that we do not have an easy way to include people the day of the event. We have to have a solid 2 to 3 days to process the registrations and all the emails that go into that get out to a person that tells you what URL to use for your class. So there's always trade-offs. You got to be careful. Now, what if you're not using a password and you use that waiting room and you hit accept all, like I just did today? What happens if you've got somebody distracting, being a Zoom bomber? My suggestion is just make sure that you as the host or somebody else as a host or co-host knows where the remove button is and knows how to get to it very quickly. I really believe that you can do that, and you should do that under all circumstances. Be ready to remove somebody and know what happens to them. So, for example, in a Zoom meeting like this, if somebody were to be removed, then they would not be able to get back into the Zoom until we restarted it. So if you, approve somebody coming in and they have a loud screaming thing going on in the background, and you're like, oh my God, it's terrible, and you remove them. But then you learn it was just the queen and she had a crying baby in the background and you really wanted her to come in again. You would have to start all over again. You would have to shut down the Zoom, reopen it, and get everybody back in. So it's a bit of a hassle. So you should know what happens when you use the remove button. I could go into that in more detail later based on what you guys are using, but that's what happens in Zoom. That's an example. You also can very easily change how you grant the video and audio microphone permissions. Now, I like to go ahead and grant everybody video and audio permissions up front. You don't have to, though. You could set on the back end, your Zoom or Google Meet or any one of these other programs, you can set the audio and video to be off for all participants except the host until you grant it. And that means everybody has to be quiet until you say, okay, now it's your time to talk. That can be great, actually, for very large meetings. I would do it for anything over 30 people. Sometimes I've hosted various online events for work that have 200 to 500 people in it. We absolutely shut off that microphone at first, and then we grant one at a time based on who we know needs to speak. So watch your settings for that. All right. Accessibility is also a piece. One of the nice things about the internet and online programs is we do get to reach out to people that may not be able to get to in-person events. I love that part. This is one of the things the pandemic showed us is when we make the effort to produce something online and share stuff online, we are serving a community of people that cannot, for whatever reason, physically get to an event space in person to then party with us or do whatever they want to do, like very serious research or whatever it is. So you've got a great swath of availability for helping to reach out to folks that don't have the same accessibility, that have different accessibility problems that you and I might not have. There is always a balance between safety and convenience. So all that stuff I was talking about when it comes to your URL and your password, keeping them separate, bringing them together when it's appropriate, all of that is a balance that you have to strike between internet safety and convenience of use. It is often a question when people say, do we make this link public? What links do we make public versus we hold on to and make them not public, but something else? That is a line in the sand the entire world struggles with every day. The United States Department of Defense struggles with it every day. What are we going to make public? And what are we going to hide behind a username and password or further levels of security? Always a balance. So make a careful decision. It's always what you and your event need that strikes that balance. I'm not going to tell you what is good or bad. I'll tell you what your options are. And when you're struggling to say, I don't know, where do we put that balance between ease of use and getting people to just click on the link and get in versus keeping ourselves safe from bad apples, that's a choice that you as the event steward, you're going to need to make. All right. I'm going to pause for a second. Any questions before we move on to the real world examples? All right. Do me a favor and let me know you're awake. I would love to know that you're awake. Have I put you to sleep yet? Because I also have some really good dad jokes.
I'm awake.
Okay. Thank you, guys. All right. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Hagar. You guys are great. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Here's my really great dad joke. All right, Hagar's here. Here's my middle of the class dad joke. All right. Why are chickens so awesome? Because. Okay. Is anybody laughing?
I'm sorry. That reminds me of the fellow who does the jokes in front of the turkeys.
Hey, why did the chicken cross the road?
Why did the chicken cross the road, Tristan?
To show the possum it could be done.
See, it's a teacher. The chicken's a teacher. All right. Thank you, guys. That's your humor break for mid-class. All right, Marguerite, I want you to know your camera's on. Okay, good, good, good. We're all good. All right, back to learning. Here we are, back to learning. And this is our scenario of an online event. I'm going to walk you through the steps. Marvin Sofiewicz's worldwide online historic puppetry festival. So for those of you who know, Marvin Sofiewicz is one of my favorite people in the world, second only to Hagar the Black. And Marvin is a great guy. Marvin's awesome. Marvin, he's been with me for so many years. I forgot when we met. He's a great guy, and he loves doing things with me in the SCA. He's got a plan to run this event, this puppetry festival, and he's decided to go unofficial. He says, there's so many things about puppetry that run beyond the SCA. I want to get everybody in there. Marionettes are post-period. They come after 1600. So we want to include marionettes. And so we're going to get them in here. So this is why he wants to run it unofficially. And he's got his content providers, which is puppetry enthusiasts from around the world. There's all sorts of people out there that like to talk about and geek out about puppetry. You've also got people who want to see puppets. There's people who like puppet shows and like to discuss puppets. And so your audience is also going to be kind of the general populace. So here's our staff. Marvin Sofiewicz has decided he's going to do this project. He's the event steward. And then he's got a good friend, and that is my good friend, the Coco the Wonder Dragon puppet. He's going to be, Coco is going to be the communications director. You've got to have somebody who's really focused on what are the communications we're putting out to the public or privately. How are we going to manage that? You need somebody on point for that. Also, it helps to have on point a technical director, somebody who's really focused on just the tech stuff. We don't care about what you're talking about to people, doesn't care about what the content is, just cares about getting the technical resources managed for your event. And then there's my adorable sister, Lucia. She volunteers to keep me out of trouble a lot. And I included her just for fun here. You can benefit from having a person as a graphic designer to help you make graphics that are going to be particularly good for your event. Make sure you own the copyright to them, or you license the copyright for using them, and can do the artistic part. So if you have a separate person in your world where you could ask to do this job, I highly recommend making that a separate one. Now, my dear sister, Lucia, often will jump in and help me with that kind of thing. She's an amazing scribe. But you may or may not need that staff person. It just depends. You really are definitely going to need a communications director and a technical director, as well as an event steward. So these are the things that I really recommend for your foundation of a staff. Now, here are software and processes you're going to want to talk about. Now, Marvin is going to choose to use Zoom because Marvin and I have been using Zoom since 2014, and we're very accustomed to it. However, there are plenty of them out there. In fact, they're growing. It's amazing how many Zoom-like companies are out there offering their services for free. It is really important that you work with whatever you're comfortable with, though. You should choose whether or not you as the event are going to provide all of the Zoom online rooms you're going to need, or if you're going to ask some of your content providers to do that. In Atlanta University, the default position is the university provides the Zoom that you would need, and teachers like me are welcome to use their own Zoom rooms if they want. So I'm doing that. I'm providing my own because I've got all the buttons where I like them, and I know exactly what my Zoom room does, and I do this all the time anyway, so I obsess about details. You don't have to, it's your choice how you do that. Now, software and processes for internal coordination is different. So imagine we have here this beautiful set of Zoom rooms where we're having classes today. under Atlanta University. There is a whole separate internal team communication system that the university staff uses. I used to be on the university staff, so I'm deeply aware of all the different things that we have. If you are building a brand new event or using things that maybe are new in this venue, then you might already have a group email list. You might already have a text chat with all your best friends that are doing this project with you. You might already have a Google Drive or other way of sharing files. I recommend you plan ahead for this piece. How are you and your project staff going to talk to each other and exchange files? I would recommend using a cocktail of solutions, because if you just say, well, I'll email each other, then you have to check. Start with making sure you have all the right email addresses and that people are watching their email. And maybe if they say, oh, I don't usually check that email, I check the other one. Does it matter which one? Do you need to have them use a Gmail account or a Yahoo? Does it matter? I find that I use a lot of Google resources. I use Google Email and I use Google Drive and I use Google Groups in order to provide a list. An email list is in Google Groups, and then all sorts of file sharing happens in Google Drive. And those are a lot easier to use when the users are all using a Gmail email account. So I highly recommend sticking with Gmail because I've had great success with it. That's just my personal favorite. There are a lot of other ways to do it. All right, so conferencing software. Marvin is using Zoom to produce the classes and puppetry discussion forums. The software and processes for internal team communication. Marvin is going to use Google Groups for email, Google Drive for sharing files, but he's also going to use his regular phone text chat for that quick moment of, I got an idea, here's a thing. And that line in the sand for when do you use chat, when do you use email, that's a personal choice. I pretty much like to do everything in email I possibly can, and then use the text to say, hey, Marvin, I just sent you an email. It's got a lot of thought in it. Go read it, please. Let me know when you've read it. That kind of thing works a lot, but that's also going to be a real feel thing that as a event steward, you need to figure out, how does your group communicate most efficiently. I would not recommend relying on in-person meetings. I think in-person meetings are great for fleshing out ideas and having deeper, more complex conversations. But you can share a lot of information through online sources. And then when you get to see each other in person, you can go deeper and wider with that communication. I don't recommend that you just say, I'll see you at the Baronial event, because stuff always happens. People get flat tires, people get sick, they get anxious and say, I just don't want to go to the meeting. And all of it's fine. We're volunteers here. So I would recommend making your online information sharing process your default. Plan it out, test it, make sure it's working and everybody's on the same page before too much time goes by. And then use those in-person opportunities to go deeper and wider, but don't rely on them as your number one communication venue. Now, here's the thing about the website. Marvin is choosing WordPress.com, mostly because Marvin and I are very, very familiar with WordPress. It's not the only way to make a free and easy website. Google Sites is an option, and there's many more out there. Atlantia in particular uses WordPress a lot. So we have a lot of people who are very familiar with WordPress. So if I ask for some help, it's likely that someone's going to say, I have some WordPress skills. I can update those blogs for you, something like that. So that's why I lean towards WordPress. Please do use whatever format is easy for you and your team. It's very, very important. Okay. Let's see, software and processes, some more promoting the event. Now, we talked about that. Hagar brought up the idea that when you're unofficial, you don't necessarily have assumed access to promote your event through official SCA venues like email lists or Facebook groups or Discord groups or whatever it is. You can ask. And Marvin is big into asking. He really likes to ask and just say, hey, I'm doing this puppetry forum. Could I please use your email list to advertise my puppetry forum? Ask, and it might be okay. A very key piece about promotion is people often rely on social media. That's cool. Definitely use it. But remember to take your static web page and make that the gold standard of information. And then you've got your foundation here. That's the static web page. And all of your social media awareness needs to take people from social media and point them to the web page. It's like social media is a big net, and you say, hey, get some interest over here, and then look at the web page. Hey, let's talk about this event over here, and then look at the web page. The web page is where the critical and accurate information should be kept. Social media should be just bringing the attention of people to it and pointing to the website. So that flow of information is important to say, yes, we've got things going on, but go look at the webpage. You'll notice that the Atlantia University does a great job of that, greatly because we were trained by one of the best online communicators, which is Mistress Drea. What is her SCA name? I'm so stupid. Andrea Le Breton. It's French. It's French. So Drea is one of the best online communicators I've ever worked with. And she knows how to do it. And she trained us back in the 2019-2020 arena on how to do really effective online communication. So I would say that's important to note. Okay, connecting the content providers to the staff. That's another layer that's different from the audience and the internal staff. There will come a time when you need to bring the content providers and the staff together. For the most part, I find Google Forms to be great for that. Again, because I'm a big fan of Google, at least the Google resources that are available to us for free. I do like them. So when you're looking for content providers, teachers, or salon hosts or panel hosts, any number of things that a human needs to lead, Google Forms is one way to do it. There's another webpage out there called Jot Forms that also provides free forms to put out there on the internet, make them public, ask people to put in information, and then you as the host get to see that information on a spreadsheet on the back end. Another one is SurveyMonkey. And believe it or not, there are a lot of people all around the world, in government and not, that use SurveyMonkey. Now, SurveyMonkey is a funny name, but it does a really great job of giving you as a host a lot of options for what kind of form to put out there, and then allow people to fill in and give you a spreadsheet of data to work with. Keep in mind your deadlines. Very important with deadlines, because you don't want people saying, oh, hey, I thought I could sign up the week before the event. And you're like, no, we had a lot of work that we just did over the last couple of weeks. So no, we can't have you sign up the week before the event. University of Atlantia has a deadline for all teachers to submit their class ideas, aka proposals, 2 months prior to the event. That's because all those proposals come in, the staff has to look through them, make sure there's nothing that's an outlier that's like not actually part of SCA scope, and then organize them into a schedule, and then present that schedule to the teachers. Make sure all the teachers say, yeah, that works for me, that's okay, or no, I can't do it that way. And discussion has to happen. And then we got to publish that schedule, known as the catalog, to the great public and give them a chance to read it, figure out what they want to do, figure out their schedule, sign up for things. And that takes time. So a 2-month time period is needed for the whole process. And so that's why we have deadlines the way we do. All right, so that's a lot of communication and process. Here's another slide on communication. When to have those in-person meetings versus email versus chat, discussions, Zoom calls. Everyone needs deadlines. Walt Disney said it best. Just everyone needs deadlines. He was famous for that. I've seen it at Disney World. And so when you are in charge, make sure that whatever system you set up, you have regular check-ins. My personal favorite is a weekly check-in where every person on the team needs to say something about what they have accomplished, what they're going to accomplish, and what they're in the middle of, and if they have any issues. I think a weekly check-in is important, even though it can be over the text in chat or email, or looking at each other through Zoom, whatever works for you. Decide when to post promotional information. Earlier is always better. There's a reason why save the dates are, even exist, and why people who throw weddings use save the dates, because they really want Aunt Patricia to come. But basically, you've got to set it up for whatever works for you and make it as early as possible. Make your own internal deadlines just as early can be. And I do recommend this piece. Set up a promotion calendar for the whole team to share. Put together a calendar and say the date of our event is here. We've got to publish these kinds of things this many days in advance to make it all work. So definitely figure out what you need based on your own calendar. I can tell you, I wing this a lot and I hate myself for it. I really need to practice what I preach a lot more, because I do juggle a lot of things, and then I don't actually sit down at the calendar and count the days back and set things up in a team calendar. And I think that it's better to do it with a setup team calendar. So that's one of the things I'm constantly working on. Let's see, consistent messaging. Consistent messaging is so important. Keep it consistent. Whatever the terms are that you're using, make sure you keep them very, very consistent, and use a logo, one logo that means your event. I'm noticing I'm getting on in time, so I'm going to skim through a lot of the rest of this. Thinking outside the box is important. That's what makes your event unique to you and interesting to the people that you are serving. So definitely think outside the box. Okay, here comes another breath. And a look at the text for questions. Okay. Yeah, if you guys need to run, go ahead and run. I'm recording this and it'll be up, but I'm going to go through. The next thing is a bunch of examples of existing current actual real live internet events. However, I'm going to kind of skip to the end. This is my list of examples. Y'all can take a look at the slides for the long list of cool things, but I want to share with you one that was recent. It just happened on January 18th. It was just last week. I couldn't go to it, but I went to the one last year, and these guys have it down. The costumers of color know how to throw an online educational event. And what they did is many of the same members, it wasn't as an organization, but many of the same members of the costumers of color through, I think, the second annual SCA-DEIB Collegium, and it was brilliant. The static website is listed there on the slide. They also had Facebook and other social media pointing to that website. They had a long series of classes. Last year, they had 6 Zoom classrooms running all day. This time they had 2. And they had a lot of variety in how they presented information, whether it was going to be 10 to 20 minute small chats or 60-minute presentations like this, or very long keystone talks from people who had a lot to share. They also recorded everything and put it up on their YouTube. They used Google Forms to recruit people. And they had this very nice email address published everywhere, scabelonging@gmail.com, in order to send questions anywhere. So I got to tell you, I have a lot of examples in there, and I have this nice list of common elements that make for a good online event. And we're at 5 minutes till, so we've got to wrap up. But what I'm going to do is leave these slides up, take a breath, and say thank you. And do you have any questions? Hello, everybody. This is actually a new presentation. I ran out of time at university, and so this is a slower and more reasonable presentation of the last section of slides for this class. This is the examples of real life events that happened online, and it really brings home how all of the theory I just presented can become real. And I've got a lot of examples from when the COVID pandemic forced us to do a lot online. And then I've got a nice, really recent online event that's an excellent example. So we're going to take a look at some Glen Aubin events and on tier and from when the pandemic hit and we were all trying to stay connected online. There's also a really cute little Windmasters Hill family reunion. That's my barony at home. We did an Atlantia Kingdom Arts and Sciences Festival event entirely online during the pandemic. Drachenwald University is famous for being excellent at an online educational event. And then Avocala North Shield had a really amazing and very unique 12th night event that was also during the pandemic. And recently, there was an excellent event on SCA-adjacent with the Collegium on the 20th of January, another really excellently run event. So these are what we're going to go through. Now, let's take a look. This one was one of the very early online events that that Scadians put together. It was really lovely. It was during that December 2020 time. We were just figuring out how to do these things online. And this was really just cooking videos, a whole lot of Scadian cooks doing their thing. And a la Julia Childs, look at me in my kitchen, I'm showing you what you can do. And they did adorable 12 Days of Christmas kind of thing. So they just recorded themselves and put it up on a Facebook group, and it was really adorable. Super simple. You can absolutely do an online event that's just collecting up videos, putting them together in a space, whether it's a Facebook group or a web page or a YouTube channel. You can absolutely just put together some videos and call it an online Collegium. You can absolutely do that. Glen Aubin's Candlemas Collegium. This one was another early one. And one of the really great things about them is they had this welcome point with housekeeping and Zoom tips, including the SCA Code of Conduct and all the clear messages about how we want people to participate. I thought that was really great, especially for the beginning of our discovery journey on how to do all of this. Another one of the things I loved about them was these puzzles that they had. They had adorable online puzzles. One of them was a very simple little thing where they took pictures of Scadians, particularly their king and queen and their baron baroness, and they took those those pictures and put it through some sort of an app and divided it up into puzzle pieces, so people could go to this link and play a puzzle game that put together the pieces of a puzzle into the picture of their Scadian leadership. I thought that was just adorable. They also really paid attention to kids. They produced a kids corner that had a coloring book and a puzzle just for the kids. So it was a really great, well balanced, especially in the early days of the pandemic kind of event. I loved it. Another one early on was this on tier 12th night. The special thing about this event that I thought was brilliant is this graphic here. This graphic of what, they're portraying as a kind of a castle gave a visual representation of the links to the online rooms they were using for different topics. So this is just an imaginary sort of vision of what a castle-like layout could be, where it gave us an idea of what to imagine for us walking into a place and going into a room or a corner to have the experience we're having online. I thought that was brilliant, and I've recommended that for a handful of events. I think we used that for the um, we had a Chatelaines event online like a year or two ago, and we used this concept for that. So I love this graphic, and also the fact that they added the kind of regular spreadsheet schedule underneath meant that people could see both visual representations of how they're going to spend their time. So I really loved that about the Ontario 12th night. Next one. This is my little invention. My home group, the Barony of Windmasters Hill. I decided we should just get together for a little shindig and talk to each other. So I put this out and I offered it. I called it a family reunion, and I had a couple of activities planned, but the idea was we're all getting together as a barony, put some garb on and get the SCA vibe going while we were all on lockdown. Um, so we also really asked all of the baronage that had ever been Baron and Baroness of Windmasters Hill to come in. We also had some interesting, cute groups of people. Like the Canton of Buxton had a group of young'uns that were, I think, teenagers and or college students at one point in time. It was like a particular clump of them at one point. They're all grown up and married and have kids now. But they were nicknamed the Buxton Brats, and it was adorable. And they came and represented. It was really wonderful. So this was super informal, but it got us all together and sharing some laughs together. And we took some family portraits, just some really cute groupings of people where they would have their camera on, everybody else turn their camera off, and we take a screenshot. So family portraits of groups that wanted to do it. It was just a lot of fun. And then of course we ended with a Bardic circle, singing. So that was super fun. Here was a big challenge we went through. So 2021, we'd all been locked down for a year, and the Kingdom of Atlantia has our Arts and Sciences Festival the first weekend of March every year. It was the last big event we had as a kingdom before the lockdown in 2020. So a lot of us remember that was a good time, wonderful event. And then all of a sudden, boom, we all had no more events we could do. So this was the next year it comes around, we're all still on lockdown, and we managed to produce an online version of the experience. And of course, it's not the same, but we did a lot of good sharing and connecting. So it was worth the effort. So here's our website, even though now that shows you only the current event, and that's, what's going to happen this year, 2025. We did have competitions where people would submit through a Google form their pictures of what they were working on. And also through the Google form, their descriptions, their documentation. They did everything just through uploading it to a Google form, and then the webmasters posted that up on the website. And that was a really extraordinary effort. So it was mostly, a lot of that with some of them being competitions, some were open display. We had a Zoom session all day for people to come in and socialize as they wished. There was one interesting thing that happened. One of my good friends, Cody Clark, had put together a virtual play of the Greek tragedy Antigone. And he's a theater person, and he also is a Scadian. He's now moved out west, but during this time period, he was here in Atlantia and put together a really beautiful virtual play of Antigone, and he had it recorded, and it was beautifully edited, and he launched it at this event. So we had the opportunity to share that, and give everybody the link so they could just sit at home and watch it. And then we had an opportunity to come together and chat about it after that. There was also some adorable Shakespeare speeches, people, doing that in a separate room. We also had our traditional Girth Oldcastle Memorial Poetry Smackdown. That happened. And then they did courts. We had courts as well, Bardic circles, and the virtual ball. That was really a lot of fun. It's a little hard to do it with each other, but people dancing on their own with some music was I think beautifully healing for those people who really, like me, get a lot out of listening to music and moving your body, even if it wasn't the same as being with people. It was a really nice way to enjoy the art that we don't normally get to. So knowing that we were all doing it together was really sweet. So that was our big festival. Here we go. Next one, Drachenwald. I am a super big fan of Drachenwald University. I can tell you that I personally love SCA universities more than anything else in the SCA. It is a brilliant living of our mission to be a 501c3 educational organization. This is where the meat is, especially for me. I'm just a nerd and a geek about learning. So when Drachenwald did this, it was primarily held on, I believe it was primarily held on Discord. Drachenwald is very, very up on Discord. And it was my first time using Discord, but there were lots of people ready to help. And I just asked for help and got lessons and got on board. So it was a really, really great event. They did 3 days. It was a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It was amazing. And some were Zoom, even though I remember I was really focused on the Discord experience. Some were pre-recorded. They also did the online ball. Now, what was really a blessing over there is they have this wonderful music ensemble called Gaeta, and they're over in the European time zone. I don't remember what country they're in, but they're an amazing group of people, and they had 3 of them living in the same household, so they could sit there and play together, so there was no lag over Zoom. And it was a lovely way to experience that music and dance that I just talked about. One of the things I learned from these folks is to pick a time zone. It is really easy to look at somebody else's time zone and then figure out your own. And so they said everything was in the Central European time zone, and then you figure out your own time zone off of that. I think it is also a great service to offer some representative time zones and help with the translation and show what those are. But this is a lesson I learned. Pick a time zone and advertise that this is the time zone your event is working on primarily. They also had a lovely feast at home where they shared recipes for people to do at home and then get online and share the experience. Of course, it's not the same as being together in person, but if you are looking to connect people online, this was a great way to do it. Offer people recipes to cook at home and then come and share them during a particular time that you have a date online. And then they also had this lovely YouTube channel with a lot of their pre-recorded videos all put together there. So I'm a big fan of Drachenwald University. Now, this is the more recent one. This is the one that happened just a little while ago. And I did not have the opportunity to actually be there during the sessions, but I watched the lead up to it, and I watched all the reports afterwards. And I'm a big fan of the folks that were running this, which is the Costumers of Color team. And I just love them. I think their work is brilliant. And so this was the second year that they had put on this Collegium. It was a little smaller this year than last year. Last year, they had 6 classrooms running all day, plus a salon, plus an all-day heraldic consulting breakout room. And so this time it was just 2 classrooms running all day in a social room. Still plenty of great content. Excellent sharing, lots of great education happening here. They did use one Zoom account, one Zoom to rule them all, and a lot of breakout rooms from it. Now, one of the things I need to still look into is they used an event registration, pre-event registration via Zoom. I think this is a feature I just haven't used yet. So I highly recommend, if you're into this, go take a look at Zoom. They have lovely help files, all sorts of ways you can look up how to do something. And I recommend looking at the Zoom help files, seeing if their registration features work for you. It could be a very nice way to just keep everything in one platform. So I don't know that one myself yet, but I highly recommend looking into it. One of the great things they did is they offered 3 different formats in terms of time and expectations. I love this. One of the things that we do in the University of Atlantia is we do require everybody to stick to a 50-minute time slot. And you, of course, can have multiple time slots together. So you can have like a 2-hour or 3-hour class if you want to. However, sometimes people just don't really fit into that. So I love what they had here with a chance to have short 10 to 20-minute chats, and then your kind of typical just under an hour or an hour presentations, and then keystone talks that you can't squeeze into an hour. I'm sure you've all been there. You've had a class online where you're getting this wonderful information and the teacher has so much to share and you've got lots of Q&A and you barely fit it in 2 hours. I know everybody's been there. So this variety of options that they had, including 2-hour-long sessions down to 10 to 20-minute chats, I thought that was brilliant. Gave people a really great option for exactly what they wanted to do. So the Costumers of Color YouTube channel is where you can see the recordings of all of those. And they also had one email to rule them all, SCA-belonging@gmail.com. I thought that was brilliant. So this is a recent event. It just happened in January of 2025. And it proves to me that all the lessons we learned through the pandemic, when we were forced to do everything online, because that's all we had, those lessons are useful today because we still have need to connect with each other and live the SCA experience, all the stuff we love to do, learning and sharing and entertaining each other. Doing that online still has a very real place in our SCA lives. And so this really excellent organization still is living those lessons. So here is my final slide. These are the common elements. These are the threads of commonality that I hope you will take home and learn from. And when you're thinking, maybe we should do this thing I want to do online, we can get people from all over the world to join onto our topic and share it and live it without having to do an in-person event. So common themes, common elements. You got to have a static website. And then any social media stuff that you do, all of that activity should feed into your pointing to your static website where the gold standard of your information sits. That process, I cannot stress enough. There are lots of different technologies that you can use, Zoom and Google Meet and Discord, and there's others out there. Many of them, most of them have a free option. So use some of that to allow people to come together. Social rooms, tech support rooms, lobbies, all these kind of like extra gathering rooms. That's not really the topic that you share, but the support to make sure people can deal with whatever technical issues they have and find space to just connect informally and unstructured. All of that is really important. These accounts on these services can be provided by SCA groups. What you are experiencing now is the Zoom account owned by the Kingdom of Atlantia for the Kingdom Minister of Arts and Sciences office. And this will, live forever and pass on to the next person after I step down. And it is really easy for SCA groups to purchase their license to these platforms and use them for the sake of their community. I really believe in a balance between structured and unstructured activities, allowing people to, focus on their class, but then have a chit chat room separately or afterwards. Allowing that is, allowing the balance to happen is very important. I think it's lovely to have courts, your royal and baronial courts, because it's all part of SCA life. And that's when our leadership offers the blessings from the crown and thank yous to the volunteers. And of course, we all do a lot of work to bring our dreams come true. So having the courts available to honor and applaud our community members is really important. I do love a display and a show and tell and just letting people show off what they're doing. A&S competitions are also a lovely way to give people a deadline to get something done and then say, all right, here's where I'm at. And then kind of look at what else is going on around you and have a little competition fun. Bardic circles and concerts are always a good time. The fact that we still have a number of online Bardic circles running means that I think it's easily a thing that we should constantly be doing to allow each other to share our love of music. The dance and ball party, the ball and dance party with music. Honestly, that is lovely. And if you can fit some in, I highly recommend it, just because getting people to move after they have been sitting in a chair looking at a computer for a while, it can be a really healthy thing to do. Always remember you can do live and recorded stuff. Your classes, your presentations, all of it can be both live and pre-recorded. Also having regular old meetings, really good idea. The panels, solars are just a group of people getting together to talk about, what they want to, and there's very little structure to it. It's kind of a jam session. I'm a big believer in that. So when you have all of those as an option, it is a really great event. Make it home feasts. I just love it. I'm not much of a cook myself, but I love the idea of trying to cook something in my kitchen that's the same as a dozen other people who are doing it at the event and then bringing it together. Pre-recorded messages are also a really good idea, especially for leading up to the event. And if you can get your royalty or baronage to put a nice welcome message up on a YouTube, that is a really sweet blessing. So I think that's a lovely way to do it. All right, those are my common elements, and this is the end. I highly encourage everybody to embrace the virtual. There are plenty of things we can still make happen without the pandemic forcing us to do it this way. We learned a lot during the pandemic lockdown, and we can still use those lessons to share all of our amazing interests throughout the SCA with people who are not in our geographic region. So keep doing it, and please do reach out to me whenever you got a question. orangesophie@gmail.com is my email. That's my personal email. And you are absolutely welcome to use it. Just don't send me spam. But I tell you, I'm an extrovert and I love to connect with people. So go ahead and just email me, even if you just want to say, hey, I had this random question, I don't know, or I thought this was fun. If you're looking for inspiration, I can also provide that. I got all sorts of great ways to brainstorm with you. So please keep in touch. My name is Sophia the Orange, and I'm a big fan of putting SCA stuff online, and let me help you if you'd like to do the same. So thank you for coming to my class. This concludes our wrap up, which is, because we had to speed through the end during the actual class. And I would super love to thank my tech support and TA, Alessandra Montegrini. I always mispronounce your name, honey. I'm sorry. Montegrioni. Alessandra, my good friend. And I want to say thank you to her. And thanks to the University of Atlantia. Thank you, everybody.